"May I have your leftovers, Sir Dash?" But when the millionaire looked into her eyes, a miracle happened. Before we continue, please remember to like, share and subscribe. The grand hall of the luxury hotel buzzed with an aura of sophistication, illuminated by extravagant chandeliers dripping crystal light onto pristine marble floors. Soft laughter drifted gently through the room, blending seamlessly with the delicate sound of silverware touching porcelain plates. Guests in elegant attire exchanged pleasant conversations, absorbed in the blissful indulgence of their fine dining experience. Everything about the hall spoke of wealth, refinement, and exclusivity, creating an atmosphere where only the privileged truly belonged. Yet amidst this dazzling glamour, one figure stood distinctly out of place. Maria moved quietly, almost invisibly, through the lavishly arranged tables. She wore a modest dress, neatly maintained but clearly patched and faded, an unmistakable contrast to the exquisite fabrics worn by the hotel's distinguished patrons. Her slender fingers gripped the handle of a worn basket tightly, betraying her nervousness as she slowly navigated the crowded space. With every cautious step, Maria could feel her heart pounding heavily against her ribs, anxiety twisting through her like an uncomfortable knot. Her quiet voice was barely audible above the gentle murmur of conversations as she politely asked guests if she might take their leftovers. Each request was made with utmost humility, her tone gentle and respectful despite the profound embarrassment she endured. The responses were varied but uniformly disheartening. Some guests offered her silent, judgmental stares before dismissing her abruptly, others gave curt shakes of the head, uncomfortable with her presence. The worst were the pitying glances, eyes filled with disdainful sympathy that silently labeled her as inferior, a beggar undeserving of acknowledgement. Still, Maria persisted, driven by a hunger that gnawed persistently at her stomach and the desperate hope of securing even the smallest morsel of food. The evening wore on, and Maria's basket remained nearly empty. Feeling a growing sense of despair, she hesitated at the edge of the room. Her eyes, weary yet determined, scanned the remaining tables, searching for anyone who might spare a bit of kindness. Then her gaze fell upon one final table tucked away at the corner, occupied by a single diner whose solitude and commanding presence suggested importance. It was Nicholas Westwood, a renowned millionaire, whose reputation was synonymous with both extraordinary wealth and an infamous aloofness. He sat quietly, absorbed in his meal, seemingly unaware or indifferent to the vibrant chatter and elegant surroundings. There was an aura of cold detachment about him, a boundary that few dared to cross. Maria paused, her nerves briefly overpowering her resolve. She considered retreating entirely, but the aching hunger within compelled her forward. Gathering her courage, she took tentative steps toward Nicholas's table, heart racing wildly. As she neared, she rehearsed the words silently, her voice trembling in anticipation. Finally, standing before him, Maria hesitated once more, breathing deeply to steady herself. Nicholas seemed to sense her presence, slowly raising his head to glance upward. His sharp, penetrating eyes locked onto hers immediately. In that brief moment, something inexplicable passed between them, a fleeting, profound understanding born of silent empathy. Maria felt inexplicably vulnerable under his intense gaze, yet also strangely comforted, as though he recognized something deeply human in her struggle. Summoning her remaining courage, she spoke softly, her voice breaking slightly under the weight of humility and desperation. "May I have your leftovers, sir?" Nicholas remained silent for a moment, scrutinizing her closely. His stern expression gradually softened, and the cold indifference melted into something approaching compassion. Her gentle sincerity and quiet dignity resonated deeply with him, awakening memories of his own past struggles, experiences he had deliberately forgotten. Slowly, Nicholas gestured toward the empty chair opposite him, his voice surprisingly gentle. "Please, sit." Maria blinked in confusion, taken aback by his unexpected kindness. Hesitantly, she sat down, her basket held tightly in her lap, unsure how to react or what might happen next. Nicholas, setting his utensils aside, leaned forward slightly, intrigued by the young woman before him. "What's your name?" he asked, his tone warm and curious, completely contrary to his usual aloof demeanor. Maria, she replied quietly, her eyes cautiously meeting his. The bustling hall around them seemed to fade away as Nicholas and Maria began to converse, their dialogue deepening beyond mere polite exchanges. It was a meeting neither had anticipated. A simple request for leftovers unexpectedly transforming into a connection filled with genuine compassion. Nicholas was lost in thought, his mind wandering through complex strategies and endless business deals, when suddenly a soft voice broke through his reverie. He looked up sharply, momentarily startled from his deep contemplation. His eyes, sharp and scrutinizing, landed on Maria, a young woman dressed in worn, humble clothes, standing nervously before him. Initially, his gaze held a trace of criticism, a subtle barrier between his world and hers. But as their eyes locked, something shifted. The hardness in Nicholas's expression softened dramatically, melting into an unexpected tenderness. In that quiet moment, a profound silence settled between them, heavier than the lavish decorations and soft music filling the grand hall. Nicholas saw past the threadbare fabric of her dress, beyond the tattered edges of her basket, and into the core of Maria's being. What caught his attention wasn't the poverty etched on her appearance but the resilience shining brightly in her eyes, the quiet dignity that refused to be extinguished by hardship. It was a strength born of struggle, an unspoken courage that resonated deeply within him. Suddenly, memories long buried came rushing back to Nicholas. He recalled the days of his youth, the early years when his pockets were empty and his future uncertain. He remembered nights filled with anxiety and hunger, and mornings that demanded perseverance against every obstacle. Those memories, once distant and muted by time and success, surged to the surface with vivid clarity. The empathy stirring inside him was not an abstract notion but a visceral connection to his own past. Moved by an instinctive kindness that surprised even himself, Nicholas reached out with a gentle gesture. His hand waved towards the empty chair across from him, a silent invitation that spoke volumes. "Please, sit," he said quietly, his voice carrying a warmth that was unfamiliar yet genuine. Maria hesitated for a moment, caught between disbelief and cautious hope. The unexpected kindness from a man so far removed from her world unsettled her, yet also touched her heart. Slowly, she accepted the invitation, lowering herself into the chair opposite Nicholas. Her hands trembled slightly as she clutched the basket in her lap, uncertain of what might come next. At first, their conversation was tentative and polite, words spoken softly amid the grandeur surrounding them. They spoke of simple things, the weather, the evening's event, careful to avoid exposing too much vulnerability too soon. But with every passing minute, a delicate bond began to form. Encouraged by Nicholas's attentive presence and genuine interest, Maria felt safe enough to share fragments of her story, pieces of a life marked by loss, hardship, and unyielding hope. Nicholas listened intently, absorbing each word with growing admiration and compassion. Her humility and honesty struck a chord deep within him. He recognized in Maria a kindred spirit, someone whose struggles mirrored his own, yet who bore her hardships with a grace and strength that inspired him. The conversation blossomed into an intimate exchange, revealing not only their pasts but also their dreams and fears. Around them, the lavish ballroom continued to sparkle with wealth and celebration, but Nicholas and Maria seemed cocooned in a private world, where social status and material possessions faded into insignificance. Here, in this unexpected encounter, two souls connected across divides, bridged by empathy and understanding. As their time together lengthened, Nicholas found himself profoundly moved, his usual reserve replaced by an openness he hadn't known in years. The man who once regarded life through the lens of power and control now felt the quiet pull of compassion, a yearning to make a difference that transcended business deals or financial gain. For Maria, the moment was transformative. A flicker of hope ignited by a stranger's kindness, a reminder that dignity could survive even in the harshest of circumstances. As they parted that evening, both carried with them the unspoken promise of change, born from a simple act of seeing one another beyond appearances. Several weeks had passed since that unforgettable evening when Maria had nervously approached Nicholas Westwood in the glittering grand hall of the luxury hotel. The memory of their encounter lingered vividly in both their minds, an unexpected meeting that had sparked a connection neither of them could have predicted. Now, on this bright morning, Maria stood outside the towering glass facade of Nicholas's corporate headquarters, her heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. Gone was the modest, threadbare dress she had worn before. In its place was a simple yet elegant outfit, a reflection of the new chapter she was about to begin. Her clothes, though not extravagant, were carefully chosen, conveying professionalism and respect for the world she was stepping into. Maria took a deep breath, smoothed her skirt, and pushed open the heavy glass doors, stepping into the sleek, polished lobby. The atmosphere inside was starkly different from the opulence of the hotel's ballroom. Here, everything was sharp and modern, steel and glass surfaces gleamed under bright fluorescent lights, and the quiet hum of business filled the air. Yet despite the intimidating surroundings, Maria's nervousness was softened by the warm smile awaiting her in the reception area. Nicholas Westwood himself emerged from a nearby elevator, his usual stern expression softened by genuine warmth. As he approached Maria, he extended his hand in greeting. "Maria," he said, his voice steady but kind, "I'm so glad you came." Maria's lips curved into a tentative smile as she shook his hand, feeling a surge of gratitude. The man who had once seemed distant and unapproachable now radiated a sincere kindness that caught her off guard. Nicholas gestured toward the sleek conference room where they would talk. "Please, come with me. I have an idea I've been eager to share with you." As they settled into comfortable chairs around the polished mahogany table, Nicholas began to speak, his eyes shining with a newfound passion. "After our conversation at the hotel, I couldn't stop thinking about your story, Maria. The challenges you've faced and the dignity with which you carry yourself. It inspired me to do more than just offer you a meal or a job." Maria listened attentively, her hands folded neatly in her lap. Her eyes widened slightly as Nicholas unfolded his vision. "I want to establish a charitable foundation," he explained, "one dedicated to combating hunger and poverty right here in our city. But more than that, I want you to be at the heart of it. To lead alongside me, managing the operations and helping to shape our mission." The proposal hung in the air between them like a promise, ambitious, sincere, and filled with possibility. Maria's mind raced with disbelief and hope. She had never imagined such an opportunity, never thought someone like Nicholas would entrust her with something so significant. A wave of emotion welled up inside her, gratitude, humility, and a fierce determination to prove herself worthy. For a moment, silence stretched as she gathered her thoughts. Then, looking directly into Nicholas's eyes, Maria spoke with quiet resolve. "I accept. I want to dedicate myself fully to this cause. Together, we can make a real difference." Nicholas nodded, a proud smile touching his lips. Rising from his seat, he extended his hand once more. Maria rose as well, and their hands met in a firm, heartfelt handshake, a gesture that symbolized the start of a remarkable partnership. The moment was more than just a formal agreement, it was the birth of a shared mission fueled by compassion, courage, and hope. For Maria, it was the opening of a door she had long dreamed of, a chance not only to transform her own life but to lift others from the shadows of hunger and despair. As they stood side by side in the bright conference room, the world outside continued its busy rhythm. But within those walls, a quiet revolution was beginning. A promise that the smallest acts of kindness could grow into movements powerful enough to change lives and communities forever. Together, Nicholas and Maria stepped forward, ready to turn vision into reality, fueled by the belief that no one should have to ask for leftovers when the world holds enough for all. Months had passed since Maria and Nicholas launched their charitable foundation, and the once modest idea had blossomed into a vibrant, thriving organization. The foundation's headquarters buzzed with a steady rhythm of activity, a living, breathing testament to their shared commitment to combating hunger and poverty. The spacious office was alive with the energy of volunteers moving purposefully between workstations, preparing nourishing meals with care and efficiency. Boxes of supplies were sorted and packed, ready for distribution to those who needed them most. Amidst the bustle, soft words of encouragement and comfort were exchanged, as the team worked not only with their hands but with their hearts. Maria, who had once timidly asked for scraps in a grand hotel's dining room, now moved with quiet confidence through the space. Her attire was professional yet simple, a reflection of the woman she had become, resilient, determined, and deeply compassionate. She coordinated the day's operations with skill and grace, balancing logistics with empathy as she interacted warmly with volunteers and recipients alike. Beside her, Nicholas was ever present, a steady anchor in the whirlwind of activity. Though his demeanor remained composed and businesslike, there was an unmistakable warmth in his eyes whenever he glanced at Maria or the Foundation's progress. Their partnership had deepened beyond the professional. It was built on a foundation of mutual respect, trust, and genuine friendship. Each day brought new challenges and triumphs, and together they navigated the complex demands of running a nonprofit dedicated to making real, lasting change in their city. They had grown into an unstoppable team, driven by a shared vision that transcended their very different backgrounds. One crisp evening, the Foundation hosted a gala event in the very same luxurious hotel where Maria and Nicholas had first met. A place that now held a profound symbolic significance for both of them. The grand ballroom shimmered once again with crystal chandeliers, though this time it was filled with guests whose hearts were stirred not by wealth or extravagance but by the powerful mission that Maria and Nicholas had championed. As the crowd gathered, Maria stepped to the podium with a grace that commanded attention. The room fell silent, all eyes drawn to her as she began to speak. Her voice was steady but filled with deep emotion, weaving a narrative that held the audience spellbound. She shared her personal journey, how she had once stood humbly before strangers, begging for leftovers, and how that vulnerable moment had led to a transformative partnership with Nicholas and the birth of their foundation. Her words resonated with a profound honesty and strength. She spoke of the pain and humiliation she had endured, but also of the hope and dignity she had reclaimed through the kindness and faith shown by one man. Maria's story was not just a tale of personal redemption but a rallying cry for compassion and action, a reminder that true change begins when we see one another's humanity beyond circumstances and appearances. From the sidelines, Nicholas watched Maria with a swelling pride and a quietly shimmering emotion. The man who had once been consumed by business ambitions now found his greatest fulfillment in witnessing the impact of their work and the courage of the woman who had inspired it all. His applause was genuine and heartfelt, as was that of the many guests who had come to support the cause. The evening was a resounding success. Generous donations flowed freely, fueled by the guests' moved hearts and inspired minds. New partnerships and volunteer commitments were forged, expanding the Foundation's reach and capability. But more than financial support, the event reinforced a powerful message: the transformative power of compassion and humility in a world often divided by wealth and status. As the gala drew to a close, Maria and Nicholas stood together, united not just by their shared mission but by the journey that had brought them here. The Foundation had grown from a simple act of kindness into a beacon of hope for many, a living testament to what can happen when people choose empathy over indifference. In that moment, beneath the glittering chandeliers and before a room full of supporters, they both understood that their greatest achievement was not measured in numbers or donations but in the lives touched and the barriers broken. Their story was proof that even the smallest gestures of generosity and understanding could ignite a movement powerful enough to change the world, one meal, one smile, one life at a time. The late afternoon sun cast a warm, golden glow over the narrow, winding streets of the modest neighborhood where Maria had spent her childhood, a place worlds apart from the glittering luxury of the hotel ballrooms and corporate offices she now frequented. Today, she returned not as the timid girl who once begged for scraps, but as a beacon of hope, carrying with her much-needed supplies and the promise of change. Alongside her walked Nicholas Westwood, the millionaire whose life had been forever altered by a simple, heartfelt encounter. As they entered the neighborhood, familiar faces emerged from weathered doorways and crowded windows, lighting up at the sight of Maria. Neighbors and old friends, many of whom had witnessed her struggles firsthand, gathered around with expressions filled with warmth, pride, and tears of joy. Her family embraced her tightly, their love unspoken but deeply felt. They marveled at the transformation of the young woman who had risen from hardship to become a leader of a growing foundation dedicated to lifting others out of poverty. Nicholas observed quietly, absorbing the sights, sounds, and stories that surrounded Maria. He walked alongside her, stepping carefully over cracked sidewalks and dirt paths that bore the marks of neglect. The stark reality of life in this neighborhood struck him more powerfully than any report or briefing ever could. Here were the faces and places that had shaped Maria's resilience, the relentless challenges she had overcome, and the community that had sustained her. Moved beyond words, Nicholas's empathy deepened as he connected the dots between the world of wealth he inhabited and the harsh realities so many faced just a few miles away. The contrast was jarring, yet it also reinforced the vital importance of their mission. Every meal served, every resource distributed, and every moment of comfort they provided was a step toward bridging that divide, a testament to the transformative power of compassion. As the sun began to set, bathing the neighborhood in soft hues of orange and pink, Nicholas and Maria found a quiet spot where they could stand side by side, taking in the scene before them. The sounds of children playing mingled with the distant hum of everyday life, creating a soundtrack of hope amid hardship. Neither spoke at first, the silence heavy with unspoken understanding. Finally, Nicholas broke the quiet. "Maria," he said softly, "I never imagined that a simple request for leftovers could change the course of my life so profoundly. You've taught me the true meaning of empathy and what it means to truly see another human being." Maria smiled gently, her eyes glistening with gratitude. "And you, Nicholas, gave me a chance I never thought possible, a miracle born of kindness and belief. Together, we've shown that even the smallest act can spark a ripple of change." Their words hung in the cool evening air, a shared acknowledgement of the journey they had undertaken. United not only by purpose but by genuine friendship, they made a silent vow to continue their work. The foundation was more than an organization. It was a movement fueled by hope, compassion, and the unwavering belief that miracles could be made real every single day. As darkness settled softly over the neighborhood, Nicholas and Maria walked slowly back, carrying with them the stories, smiles, and strength of a community bound together by resilience and the promise of a brighter tomorrow. Their partnership had begun with a simple act of courage and kindness. And it would continue, lighting the way for many more lives to be touched and transformed in the days to come. If you enjoyed the story, please ensure to like, share and subscribe. Thank you.